Hi, everybody. This is Bobbie Carlton from Innovation Women. And today we're going to be talking about audio only platforms and how they create such great opportunities for us as speakers. So, I'm going to start right off by sharing a presentation, and we're going to walk through this and get going on this conversation about audio only presentations. So I don't know about you, but I feel kind of zoomed out. I think after a year of spending multiple hours a day on Zoom, I think a lot of people feel this way. And I think it's one of the reasons that we're seeing the rise in applications that are audio only. So if you are so tired of seeing your own space, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, these are great options for you. And they also give you a lot more opportunity to get onto new stages, be connecting to new people and new audiences. And I have to admit, it's not just Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces anymore. There are more options coming for you. So keep your eyes open for those other options because as new platforms come online, you can be an early adopter and start collecting that crowd, collecting that community around you. So, new spaces, new opportunities. All right, let's jump in on Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse, I cannot tell you how often I'm reading articles about Clubhouse these days. It is unbelievable how popular it is. However, it's pretty limited. You can only use Clubhouse currently if you are using an iPhone. It is also invite only, and members keep getting new invites to share with people, but they have a limited number at any specific time. I have to tell you, these invites are in such demand that at one point people were offering Clubhouse invites on eBay for 125 bucks. If you are an Innovation Women member and you are interested in getting onto Clubhouse, you have an iPhone, we can get you an invite. So talk to us about that and we will get you onto Clubhouse if you're interested. So when you go into Clubhouse, there are three basic roles. There is the moderator, that's the person who started the room. They can accept or reject speakers, mute them, remove them. They are in control of the room. Anybody who is a speaker has to be invited up onto the stage, the virtual stage in the room, by the moderator. And the speaker can leave at any time without disturbing the conversation. There's actually a little leave quietly button at the bottom of your app screen. So all you have to do is push that button and you disappear from the room. If the moderator leaves, it shuts down the room. So that's one reason that you will often see a lot of rooms with multiple moderators, because so long as there is one moderator left in the room keeps going. And yes, some of these rooms, they keep going and going and going. There have been several rooms that have gone on for multiple days because they're just switching moderators in and out. And the biggest group of people in any room is generally the listeners. These are people who have not been invited up onto stage or who are, quite frankly, not interested in being invited up onto the stage. They are just there for the knowledge. And the listeners are actually divided into two groups. I call them the above the line and the below the line listeners. And the above the line listeners, you can see it very faintly in this screenshot that I showed. It says followed by the speakers. These are always the listeners who are at the top of the screen because, I'm sorry, followed by the speakers. They are people who are connected with the people who are on stage. So when you are followed by the people on the stage, you get to be the top of the list, and you are often the people that the other listeners are seeing. So it's a great way to get more visibility when you are followed by the speakers. Now, profiles are really what's key to the connections. So when you get into Clubhouse, you want to make sure that you fill out your profile. And that is how people decide to connect with you or not to connect with you. And a lot of times people are in a room and they're just listening. So when they're in the room and they're just listening, one of the things that most people do is they press on the spaces, the people's faces that they see, and they browse the profiles. So whenever you're in a room, especially if you're an above the line listener, people may be looking at your profile and deciding if they want to connect with you. One of the things that it shows is the person who invited you. So Margaret invited me, and I was nominated into Clubhouse by Margaret. I joined in December, and it actually puts her profile link on my profile, evidently forevermore. So I am forever linked to Margaret. I also have my social media identification and links, so you can connect to Bobbie C on Twitter and the Bobbie Carlton on Instagram. And those are linked right off to those other social IDs. And that's important because Clubhouse has no way to message other members of a room. So if you want to message somebody, you need to be connected to them on another social network, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, so that you can connect with them and chat with them. So I find that when I am active in a room on Clubhouse, my other social media identifications and IDs will actually be getting followers because people are connecting to me on other social networks. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the clubs that the person is a member of. So I'm a member of the Women Founders Group. I'm a member of Club Pod, so that's for podcasters. So this shows the clubs that you're associated with. It's also a good place to look at how you can get connected to specific clubs. So when you're looking at other people's profiles, you want to look at the clubs that you are that they are a part of to see if it might be something you're interested in. And I asked the question, what's with the party hat? When you are new to Clubhouse, you get a little party hat, and the party hat goes on your profile. You don't see one on my profile because silly me, didn't take a screenshot of it while I still had a party hat. And the party hat signals to everybody else who is on Clubhouse that you are new and they should be kind to you. That is quite literally how they phrase it. So the idea behind having that is to identify people who are new so that people can help them. I think that is actually one of the nicest parts about Clubhouse. Just having that label as being new gives people the opportunity to help guide you. When you are in Clubhouse, the basic format of Clubhouse is a room. So each individual room has a title. In this particular case, the sample that I'm showing here shows that this is a product of the Entrepreneur Millionaire Secrets Club. And the title of the room is Tony Fernandez, CEO of Air Asia on Entrepreneurship. You'll see that there are almost 6,000 or more than 6,000 people in the room. There are 6 people on stage talking. And what you're seeing here is a list of the people who are the moderators and the speakers in the room. So this is a great place to sit and listen. If you're in a room that is that big, you're probably not going to have the opportunity to talk. So one of my recommendations is if you are getting started with Clubhouse, Absolutely. Go in and listen to things that interest you, but you might want to check out some of the smaller rooms with a handful of people because that will enable you to be connected to people. You'll get a chance to talk and you'll get a chance to start building up your audience. So you want to look for the people who are like you. You want to look for the people who are in the areas that you are in, and you want to get connected with them because who you're connected with on Clubhouse helps determine, I'm going to call it the hallway that you walk down. So if you think about Clubhouse as a metaphorical house, you're not going to see every single hallway. You're not going to see every single room. You're going to see the ones that are connected to you and are done by topic. So think about how you connect with people on Clubhouse is really associated more with kind of the things that you want brought to your attention because the people you're connected with can potentially ping you into a room. They can invite you into a room. So, a couple pieces of advice from me based on my personal experience. Number one, the notifications on Clubhouse can be absolutely overwhelming. You'll notice in this sample that I pulled, I have one that says now, one notification that says a minute ago, one notification that says 4 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, 6 minutes ago, 13 minutes ago. They just keep coming. So, if you are easily distracted like moi, you may want to turn off your notifications if you're going to get any work done. Another piece of advice I have is you're going to need to watch your reputation on Clubhouse. I've seen a couple of people who pop in and out of some of the rooms that I participate in. They show up in a room, they raise their hand immediately, they hop onto the stage and they give a commercial and they run away. And the more and more I see this action, the more and more I realize that when I'm running a Clubhouse room, I am never inviting that person up on stage. So you can get a reputation by selling or selling yourself that you don't want on Clubhouse. So be very careful in terms of positioning your contributions to be contributions to the conversation, to be helpful information, not necessarily standing on stage and selling. Unless, quite frankly, that's the name of the room. And there are some rooms like that. One of the things you'll also want to think about are what are your goals on Clubhouse? When you get started on Clubhouse, it's incredibly consuming. You could all of a sudden, look up and realize you've been on Clubhouse for 5 or 6 hours. It's easy to hop from room to room, getting involved in conversations, and time passes and you are still on Clubhouse. So think about what your goals are. What do you want to get out of Clubhouse? Another thing to think about is what time zone do you want to hang out on Clubhouse? There's a big group of people all over the world who are on Clubhouse, and it may be that the people you want to connect with are people in your local geographic area or your time zone. So if you're getting involved in Clubhouse early in the morning, your time, you might not be connecting with people in your time zone. You might be connecting with people in another time zone. Now, in order to build connections, yes, being the above the line listener gets you some visibility, but really the most valuable connections are the ones that come after you have spoken. So I think a lot of people listen to the speakers, they connect with the speakers. Every time I step onto stage in Clubhouse, I find another group of people are following me. So the speaking is how you begin to really build those connections and build that following. I definitely recommend checking out clubhouseguide.com. Some great information there and some great ways and strategies for building and having a great Clubhouse experience. In terms of kind of owning the room as a speaker, and this is specifically for our speakers, In order to create your own club, you first have to have created 3 rooms and hosted 3 rooms. So that is the basic way that you start getting into the mode of creating a club of your own. So once you have created 3 rooms, you have the ability to create a club. So the instructions for doing this are right on clubhouseguide.com. Um, if you want to have a large group of people in your rooms, you probably want to schedule those rooms in advance. I think the current best practices are schedule them about a week in advance. Another thing is recruiting some great speakers to your room. If it's just you, there's a lot going on for you to manage. And I would definitely recommend recruiting some great speakers from innovationwomen.com. Had to throw in that little commercial there. When you are creating your rooms, the titles are where it's at. It's like that is quite literally often why people pop into a room. So being very descriptive, being very clear about what your room is doing is very, very helpful. I've seen this a number of times. There is a raise the hand feature in Clubhouse, and it's designed to allow people to raise their hand and get called up onto stage. You can use that raise the hand feature to do surveys. So, what you do is you basically ask a question and say, we're not using this to invite people onto stage, we're just using it to do a survey. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. People will raise their hands. Then, as the moderator, you shut down the ability for people to raise their hand and it clears the board. And you can ask another question once you turn it on again. So, that's a great little tip in terms of getting a reaction from people in the audience. Um, if you are doing your own clubhouse room, one of the things you'll probably want to do is partner with other moderators. And this is one of the reasons that we created a list of Innovation Women members who are on Clubhouse to enable you to connect with other Innovation Women members if you're looking for partners and other moderators. If you are partnering with somebody else, you probably want to split up the roles or arrange to shift roles over the course of the room. So have one person be the MC, have one person be the quote unquote guest relations person, another person be the bouncer, sending people down once they're finished talking. One of the things that you can do is you can coordinate these things through the Twitter direct message or Instagram message features, because again, there's no way to chat with people on Clubhouse itself. One of the things that Clubhouse has done is it's created its own vernacular. And one of the pieces of vernacular is this resetting the room. So, resetting the room means a quick message, verbal message from the owner of the room or one of the moderators to tell everybody in the room what the purpose of the room is. So, for example, the sample that we're looking here, Clubhouse 101 tips and tricks and how to best use Clubhouse, is there would probably be a very short description. Today, we're here to help you all learn more about using Clubhouse. And if you're interested in asking a question or you're interested in contributing an idea, raise your hand, we'll bring you up on stage. Or maybe it's running around the room and saying, you know, we have Julie, Stephen, and Ari here today to answer your questions. So just resetting the room is very important in Clubhouse because people flow in and out of rooms all the time. And you want to make sure that they show up knowing what's going on. So if they show up and you're in the middle of a conversation, which maybe it's a tangent, maybe you went off on some sidetrack, you want them to know what the purpose is of the room. So you have to keep resetting the room whenever a new group of people appear. Most of the people who run Clubhouse rooms say you should reset the room probably every 10 to 15 minutes or so. So nobody has to wait too long to figure out what the purpose is of the room. Again, we have been sharing invites via our Facebook members only group. And we also have a Google Docs directory. Whoops, it says coming. We made it. It's there. And so if you're interested in getting involved in Clubhouse, definitely reach out to us for an invitation or to get listed in the Google Docs directory. All right, moving on to Twitter Spaces. And Twitter Spaces is still in beta, so it's still very early. But I do believe that both iOS and Android on the app have access to Twitter Spaces currently. So one of the things we'll do after this presentation is I will open up a live Twitter Spaces room for anyone who wants to join me there. I know because Clubhouse is still only iOS only, we could potentially have somebody here today who couldn't get on there. So I want to make sure that we're doing a demonstration where everybody can access it. So, Twitter Spaces, do you have the power to create your own Twitter space? Right now, not a lot of people do, but the way to test if you do is to go down to the add a tweet button and hold it down. And if you see the little Twitter Spaces icon, you have the ability to create your own Twitter space and host your own Twitter Spaces events. If you are looking for Twitter Spaces to participate in, what you're going to do, and this is only available on the app, is you're going to open up your app and you're going to wait for the top of the screen to populate. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for, I call them the purple halo or the purple planets. And in this particular case, you see that my picture has a little purple circle around it, and I have a little purple circle. So that means that I have a Twitter space that is currently open that you could potentially join. All you have to do is touch it, and you could join right in on the conversation. Now, Twitter Spaces, a lot of people have been adding these purple dots to their account name. And so if you see people with the purple dot, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are a Twitter Spaces host. It could also mean that they are a Twitter Spaces aficionado, an expert in Twitter Spaces. They have participated in Twitter Spaces, and they are open to having conversations with other people about Twitter Spaces. So the purple dot isn't necessarily just for hosts, it's for people who are participating in Twitter Spaces. When you are participating in a Twitter space, you can actually do some adjusting to your Twitter space account and the settings for it. As the host, I actually choose who can speak, who comes into my Twitter space having the ability to speak. One little caution. I will say that I will caution you against allowing everyone to come in and have the ability to speak just because you want to be able to control that. When Twitter Spaces are up and running, there's only 10 speakers allowed on stage at a time, and you want to be able to control who comes up. So I basically have my settings set so that only people I invite up onto stage can speak. So I'm doing it more of a Clubhouse model in terms of who can speak in the Twitter spaces that I control. One of the nice things about Twitter Spaces is that it actually allows you to set up captions. And so you can turn on and off the ability to view captions, which is great from an accessibility point of view. So it is nice in terms of anybody perhaps who might be deaf or hard of hearing can turn on the captions. We've done some testing with it. I will say the captions are meh. They're not exactly there yet. They're making progress, but it's not perfect and it doesn't capture everything that's being said. When you are in Twitter Spaces, like Clubhouse, there's 3 different levels. You can have the host, you can have a speaker, and you can have listeners. Your controls are across the bottom. And when I was showing you the settings just a moment ago, those are in the 3-dot menu down here on the bottom. When you are coming into a Twitter space, just like when you're coming into a Zoom meeting, good manners, you're turning your mic off so that there's not a lot of noise coming in with you. You can also use the icons. So Twitter Spaces has emojis, and that actually allows some nice levels of interaction between the host and the speakers and the listeners that Clubhouse just doesn't have. The up arrow allows you to share that you're hosting a Twitter space. That's something that you only get as a host. And you can also invite specific people into your Twitter space. All right. I mentioned earlier, coming soon, we have Facebook audio rooms. Now, I'm sure everybody realizes it that Facebook rooms exist. They're in video. And I know this sounds very weird, but they have promised that they are working on audio only versions. So maybe that means they're just taking video away from the audio. I don't know. It does mean that we do perhaps have the option of doing either audio or video in Facebook rooms. And I really think kind of the big win here would be in the groups, like our members only group. Just imagine if you came into a group and you see that the other people who are in the group are in a chat room and actually have the ability to talk directly to them. So I think that could be a really, really big win. Again, LinkedIn says it is working on audio rooms only. So like Facebook, they're doing the same kind of audio video choice. And again, if you're going to have your own group on LinkedIn, big win could be in those groups. Very similar. We'll see what's coming. Don't know yet, but definitely keep an eye out for them. Discord, Telegram, WhatsApp, Spotify, they have all said they are working on audio rooms. Such a hot area and such a great place for us to think about all the different options for different stages. If we're not into the video or we're tired of video or we're just looking for something different, audio could be our next stage. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and see if we have any questions. So, hey everybody. Hey Jerry Lynn, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It was
Speaking of Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got to try that out with you yesterday. I tried it one time when we did Innovation Women, and I couldn't tell whether it was the system or my Wi-Fi, but I did get kicked out a few times. So, yeah, and we know it's still in beta. So, but it was really interesting to experience it.
That's great. Yeah. And I have to admit, I think it was the system, because there have been a few times where I have opened up rooms where it just doesn't connect.
Okay.
And so I feel like they don't quite have the load balancing figured out.
Okay.
So that they just don't quite yet have everybody able to do this all at the same time. So the times that I haven't been able to connect were in the early evenings, East Coast time. So I wanted to try and do some Twitter spaces, 6, 7 o'clock, and I wasn't able to connect during that time period. But when I waited until 7:30, 8, 9, I was able to connect. So,
well, I was grateful for the opportunity, since you knew who I was, to be able to see what it was like to go from, I don't know, I remember which terms are used in Clubhouse and which ones are Twitter, but anyway, to go from attendee to a speaker. So grateful to have that opportunity. What I also found interesting was you had a whole variety of different people that attended too.
Yes. And I had been playing with the different settings, and that was the
Mhm.
first time that I have opened it up to everyone, and I won't do that again. Let's put it that way. So I think there were people who were bopping from space to space just to see where they could share their message.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, great. Hello, podcaster who is obviously running around to all these different spaces promoting their thing. Or people from overseas who were perhaps practicing their English. Or there was a bunch of folks in there that were not interested in public speaking for women. Let's
Yes.
put it that way. So I learned my lesson. I shall not open it up to everyone ever again.
Well, anyway, thank you.
Absolutely. So I was going to open up a Twitter space right now if people have their phones handy, and allow everybody to hop in and give it a shot. So I am opening up a Twitter space right now, and in order to um, participate, you have to be on your mobile phone and you have to be following Innovation Women for it to show you the Twitter space when I open it up. So I have opened up a Twitter space as Women Inno. So I'll type that in. So you have to be in there. Whoops, woman would help if I spelled it correctly. Women Inno. So if you get out there's Julie. And once people are in, I will probably turn off. Trying to think here. All right, everybody seems to be popping in okay. If you are interested in joining as a speaker, you have to request that. And I have not turned on the mic on the Twitter space itself yet. So if anybody wants to join me as a speaker, you have to actually request that. Does everyone see where you can request it? Let's try this. There we go. I'm seeing requested as a speaker. Yay. And I'm going to turn off my microphone here.
Bobbie, you gonna end the Zoom and then we'll swap? I I think you're muted. Are you muted?
Yes, I was muted on, so I was muted on the screen because, hold on.
Yeah, I know, because the feedback. Yes.
Feedback.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you all for joining us today. And I'm going to stop the recording on the Zoom that we've been participating in as part of the Innovation Women Knowledge session. And we are shifting over to a live Twitter space. Awesome. Talk to you all later.